We're here, we're back, and we're giving you the pod you've been demanding. 90 minutes on what the hell those scratches were on Pep's head. This is the ArsenalVision Post-Match Podcast. My name's Elliot Smith. Block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. Yeah, Pep's not doing great, everyone. And neither are Manchester City. I can tell you, as we were bouncing, singing the Merino song that we'd nicked off Sporting Lisbon, and everybody's turning and going, City just blew a 3-goal lead. It only made the night better. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I hope you are wonderful. I hope you are happy. I hope you're at peace. And all I can say is that it is Thanksgiving here in the United States. So a happy Thanksgiving to those of you celebrating with family. I also know the holidays can be difficult for people. And for those of you for whom that is the case, we love you. We're here for you. And we hope that you have, a place to find happiness and connectedness. And if we can help with that, certainly love to. I know that I feel filled up and connected after a trip that I feel very privileged to have taken. And I just want to say thanks to everyone that I get to bump into and say hi to. Once again, Arsenal supporters, at least to me, seeming to be some of the most welcoming and beautiful people that I've met in my lifetime. So we're going to do a pod on the football. Don't worry. This isn't all going to be a navel gazing at what it was like to be there. We'll give you a little bit of that too, just because it'd be weird not to do it. I do owe a huge thanks to Killen and his wife Jen for hosting in Lisbon, two lovely people whom I love with all my heart and soul and will miss, but really appreciated the time with them. And of course, it's a man without whom I wouldn't probably be involved in doing anything Arsenal related, and certainly not a podcast. Andrew Arsblog, seeing him, just one of the great pleasures every time I get a chance to do it. So thanks to him for being around and being wonderful. So with that out of the way, I will say there have been questions about this. I wanted to do something to say thank you to the community and kind of be holiday oriented, and a thanks for the FCA thing. And so for a month, up until the end of the year, we're doing half off the Patreon for the first month. So instead of that first month being $5 it'll be $2.50, which is like £2. And you can sign up with the code 10NIL, all caps, 10NIL, TENNIL, all caps. It's 50% off the first month. If you do a year, you can get 10% off. And that's for new subscribers for that first month. And if you have any questions about it, obviously shoot me an email or DM me or just get in touch and we'll answer any questions you have. We're going to do a rewatch of this game tomorrow, I believe, and there'll be an instant reaction for the West Ham game over the weekend. We're also going to be starting a new watch-along concept here pretty soon using a technology that just launched. So lots of cool stuff coming. I know whenever there's travel, it disrupts the schedule, but we're going to come back in even better form, just like Arsenal. So great things ahead. Beautiful things for all of us. I hope you're doing well. We love you so much. And here with me now is Paul. You can find him on Twitter at Pause My Pencil. Pause. Woohoo, indeed. And Clive. You can find him on Twitter, Clive PFC. Hello, Clive.
Hello.
Sadly, not sitting on a couch staring into your eyes,
stop it.
Holding your thigh, and as we do this podcast,
it means more to you than me.
You're not wrong. You're
just
not
football,
wrong,
mate.
It's just football, mate. It also, I thank God, I'm so happy to be back in the gray, snowy cold. Really, really good to get away from the sun and the warmth. Let's dive into it. Obviously, a historic night, 5-1 victory for Arsenal. A really interesting week of football in general, with what's going on with City as well. Of course, we can analyze that, and I think you see a Real Madrid that doesn't look their strongest. Bayern Munich continue to, I think, be in a bit of a valley as far as they go. And you would be forgiven if you're looking at the Champions League and squinting and saying, could it be? Is it possible? Is it open? It feels a little open, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. We'll do the how are you going to celebrate winning the Champions League talk at the end of the pod. Okay, so Clive, let's do it quick. Again, not too much navel gazing, but just your thoughts on Lisbon, your thoughts on the night, experiencing a historic away win, and just how you felt about being there in general.
Yeah, Lisbon's a nice place, right? And it's the sort of place when you visit, you feel as though you could stay, and we all had that feeling to go on a holiday, but this one for
real.
Had
to drag me onto the plane, mate.
Yeah, you could stay. It was tough to sort of walk away from that rooftop bar. I know life isn't a rooftop bar, but it felt like it for a short period. And very enjoyable. And Killen was great, wasn't he, getting us around and looked after me, walking slowly behind you and Andrew striding ahead.
You didn't have your Lycra, that was the problem.
Yeah, exactly. All come. I said to Killen, don't worry, they'll come back to us eventually. We're like the Odegaards. The ball always comes back to us, right? Because they don't know which way to turn, right? So that's how we did it. But yeah, a really nice experience. I always feel like I'm not just privileged to travel to watch Arsenal away, which is great. I don't do it often. When you sort of join the fans that do it often, you feel like, yeah, this is nice. They really do this, and I do this like 3-4 times a year max, and so that's always a privilege, and people are always so nice. But yeah, It was one of those moments where you could say I was there, and there hasn't been many of these European nights. And we did our IR. I knew that I had a feeling that Tim was in Inter Milan, but I wasn't sure, so I didn't say nothing. Messaged him afterwards. Of course, he was there. That was a long time ago, right? That's 20 years ago, and it's that level of night, and it really was, and it's really reset us in the Champions League. So, yeah, extremely enjoyable, extremely privileged, and it was the archetypal performance for me. How we play, style of play, roles, responsibilities, balance, particularly in that first half. If you ask me honestly, and we all have a picture of football in our mind, what does an Arsenal team, this team, look like? That was it. That was it. I could find little fault in anything we did, and it was just wonderful to be there.
Yeah, it was incredibly special. Obviously, the city itself is wonderful. The Arsenal supporters were wonderful. I'll pick out just a couple of moments. If I could transport everybody to one moment that we had in this game. We're 1-0 up. We're bouncing. We're feeling good. But 1-0 up, it's still nervy, it's still a little bit edgy. And there's no drinks that you can buy, no alcoholic drinks you can buy in the ground. There's no vendors or stalls or anything, but there's a guy who comes around selling water. And he's just got, a bag full of water bottles, and he'll come over to you and you can buy a water bottle off him. So the three guys sitting behind me decide they want a water bottle. He comes down our aisle. He's standing there next to me. Okay. So he's standing there next to me. The guys behind me are getting the water. We're watching the game. The second goal goes in while he's handing them their waters. And we all went nuts hugging him, patting him on the head, hugging him, singing to him, giving him hugs. And he saw smiles. He's singing with us. He's like, I'm good luck, good luck. And we're hugging this guy and this water bottle vendor just there, just getting caught up in the love of Arsenal as we go 2-0 up. So that was a really good memory. I did love, they have a song that we nicked off them to use for Merino, and it just went up over and over and over again. Yeah, it's one of those things, because if I compare to Porto, we were so up for it. But if you remember, that was a knockout game. It was our first time in that stage in a long time. And when the Champions League anthem went up, our sphincters got to pinhole size. It got real nervy real quick. This night was up from the start, stayed up from the start, and was just really, really good. So that water bottle vendor memory is one. I have to thank people for being welcoming, and I have to just acknowledge the, immense privilege and good fortune to be able to do this. And that is never lost on me. And coming home, obviously I missed my daughters, I missed my wife, missed my pets and stuff. But if there's something that's going to drag me away from them for a little while, being with Arsenal people is it. And so, yeah, a really special night. You felt the history of it. You felt something important happening. And I think it was so needed, this 2-game run between the Forest game and this. And we pointed to the period after the international break. We said, this is where the run has to start. You couldn't have scripted it any better than that. And so, Paul, I'll bring you back into the pod with this before we get into the nuts and bolts, the lineup, the performance, and all that. It seemed clear coming out of the international break that the season was almost getting its part 2 start. Like a restart. And momentum, I know there are people that don't believe in momentum, but we saw last season from January on after Dubai that momentum happens. And I don't think it should go unnoticed that a lot of players didn't go away at international break, that we had 2 weeks, not in Dubai, but at Colney, to refocus, recenter, get reorganized and reintroduced to one another with some players that haven't been able to integrate because of injuries. In terms of this result on the heels of Forest, how important do you think this is for what we are trying to generate here around people fearing the Arsenal and really believing that Arsenal are able to be as good as we had hoped when the season kicked off?
Yeah, look, Dubai is not a place. It's a state of mind. And that's 2 games. It's talk about small sample size, 2 games in a row. But you put those 2 games in a row and you put last season and the trajectory of last season, and you see the team with and without Odegaard, and you're like, oh yeah, there's the missing piece right in it. What's interesting is when you listen to the pundits, who you shouldn't, because we spent the first 11 games of this season hearing them talk about Arsenal and not understanding what they're looking at. Jamie Carragher saying something like, the problem is Arteta's trying to win the league by playing like Mourinho, and all of us thinking, how do you spend so much time talking about how you're working on your analysis of the game, and you come out with that. And like, you put Odegaard back in, and you see our level of football across the last two games. And like, my experience of this game was quite different to you and Clive. I watched it on my laptop. I kept the sound off, so that it was just too much atmosphere, too much excitement. I'm like, this is too much for me. You can't do that at the stadium. But I would have tried to, because it would have been overload.
I think that defeats the purpose.
For many.
Yeah.
For me, I'm like, even with the sound off, watching this on my dumb laptop, I let it wash over me. It was phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal football. And those pundits who you can ignore most of the time, you listen to them and you interpret, and immediately they're all like, oh yeah, well, that's probably, Odegaard's probably pretty good. And that's probably why these guys are a totally different animal. We're a totally different animal. And it's fascinating to watch this level of football and to watch our football. And like, it's electric. 2 days on, it's still washing over me. It's still flowing through me. It's on, baby. We spotted Liverpool a 9-point lead, but it's on.
Yeah, and if you think about what I was talking about before the international break, and then even going into this Champions League tie, Clive, what I really wanted to see was Arsenal go away in Europe and stay committed to wanting to dominate the game from an offensive standpoint. And 4 expected goals, granted we had a penalty, but still 4 expected goals away and 5, actual goals away, I think is big. And it's why, look, being a take merchant can get you noticed, but being a take merchant is not a long-term strategy. And what I mean by that is, the Jamie Carragher thing of they want to do it the Pep way, the Jose way, or the Arsenal attack is no good. We played with 10 men a lot this season. We played without our most influential playmaker this season. We had mix and match teams. We had very difficult fixtures. And the race to have a judgment about a team that had just broken its goal scoring record this season before, I think, was unnecessary. And I want to be clear, I'm not criticizing people who had natural emotional responses to a disappointing start to the season. But I think that good Arsenal was always in there and we had glimpses of it. It's really reassuring, though, that that's being validated. Not that we haven't won anything yet, but I mean, the direction of travel offensively is there, and that's exciting. Clive, I do want to talk a little bit about lineup and stuff you've been emphasizing that, ignore first 11s, things like that. I'm going to give Mikel credit for a thing that maybe I haven't in the past, which is this week showed his willingness to manage his squad, and you really called that out after the Forest game, and we saw the way we used our squad between these 2 games as a 2-game set and how effective that was. And Mikel called something out really important because he was asked after the game, about having players back or having Odegaard back and what's changed since the international break. You know what he emphasized? He emphasized training. This is the second time he's done that. And he said, what's changed since the international break? He said, a lot. Because we were training with 11 to 12 players for a long period. So they could not train and play. And then suddenly almost everybody is fit and available. And that's the second time he's called out training together. So your thoughts on a lineup that reflected the ability to manage the week between the squad and him being able to train with a bigger group and have everybody involved?
Yeah, so when you got people training and playing, you're more likely to get a performance of full power. And that's what we got. And we enabled some of that by the rotations. And so yeah, the training point is the point. And I do think, what triggered people's views, and we have to, including myself, be less sensitive to people having those views. And we have to understand how to ride out bad form as a group of Arsenal people. What's bad form? What's bad players? What's bad tactics? What's bad substitutions? And trying to measure form, it's just something you see when it all comes back and you think, oh man, I was a bit hard on that player back there. And maybe he wasn't quite at it in the right role, for example. Or maybe he was carrying an injury. We've seen the improvement in Timber over time as he gets over that injury. We're still seeing Calafiori a little bit behind on the back of his injury. We saw Ben White play injured, during that period when we were a little bit flat and not joining in. And what does that do to your form? Well, it makes you less aggressive. You become more conservative. You stand still a little bit more. You stand in space. You don't join in. when you've got your leader out of the team in Odegaard, who basically pulls the line height up by his actions, then all of a sudden you're a little bit more passive. And if you're a bit more passive, you've got further distance to follow, to go through. And what do? When you've got bigger distance to go through? You take the easy option, which is to hit the big man and play from there. So it's really, that's what just generally happens. It just generally happens. And it's just riding out that form period. And when you get your players back and people start to move, then the passes look better. Suddenly their passes are connecting because they've got runners. And I watched the game this morning, Elliot, and there were so many points to bring forward. The first couple of points, I mean, we were so aggressive running into the box. And when you have aggressive runners into the box, guess what you do? You cross the ball to them, right? It's just one action leads to another action. There was a lot of combination play, very tight combination play, with 5 over on the right-hand side at a time, with Declan Rice coming over, making it number 5. Well, you can't overload that. You can't beat that. You can't bring 6 over. And so eventually we get a man free, cross goal. Some of this stuff is perfection. And it's a lot more... Mikhail spoke about playing with courage. I sort of saw what he meant when I watched it again this morning. People have to follow the ball into areas which is not their position on their shirt. And they just do it because the ball's there and my teammate needs me. And if that means I'm leaving 30 yards of space to the left of me or 30 yards to the right of me or 30 yards behind me, I'm going to do it because I think someone else will cover it for me. But I need to be aggressive. I need to get to the second ball. I need to keep people in areas. So I've got to be courageous. I can't stand off. I can't stand off and then they pop it past us. And we were courageous, aggressive, and then really ran into the box. And that drives actions. And like I said, it's one of the best I've seen. Honestly, in my life, it was that good in that first half. It was really good.
Yeah, I mean, really, really good. And I think the thing that we can maybe go into right away is just the right-hand side in general, Paul. And like, I know that we're going to do this. We're not going to do this. I know people are going to do this. There's going to be a race to erase Ben White, right? Just because Timber looked so good. And I think you do that at your peril. We've looked great on the right-hand side with Ben White when he's fit and playing. But I certainly think, having Thomas Partey in midfield and being able to pick Timber at right back and have a right back who has just a really high technical level, but also can overlap, has the athleticism to get up and down the flanks. Odegaard in there obviously makes all the difference in the world. Declan Rice was coming over. He was on the right-hand side, right, to help create a goal. All of that stuff that Clive's been talking about, I think is a critical piece of this game. And so I don't want to shut you out of that conversation. What do you think of just in general, the immense overload we had on the right? And obviously Martin Odegaard just central to all of that. And you'll have to unmute, by the way, because you are muted on the actual software. There you go.
Oh, okay. So yeah, look, I found this performance in itself fascinating. Firstly, because as a benchmark, it was one of the best performances I've ever seen from this team. And therefore, when you see your Arsenal, you say, okay, well, what was that? What was that specifically? This is close to our max with this group of players in a performance. So that is our best football. Forest with Odegaard, I felt he kind of floated a bit more. He was kind of a little bit more around the pitch. In this one, he was very decidedly in that right top corner of the pitch. We didn't use 3/4 of the pitch. I felt we were going to take out planning permission on 3/4 of the pitch to, I don't know, build apartments, luxury complex. We weren't using that real estate in Lisbon. We lumped it up from the get-go, as we've seen with Raya, up into the right corner. We pinned them in. We applied the pressure. We folded, absolutely worked them inside out from that right corner. It was Timber, it was Saka, it was Odegaard doing their thing, Partey behind them, Saliba with the press behind them to keep it in that box, keeping the ball into that area, going back to that area, and then the release to the other side or the cross to the other side into space from time to time. And they must have known we can do this. They must have known we would do this. Somehow Saka kept getting his man 1-to-1, isolated, punishing the guys. And what you saw, what was interesting to me was how good it was and how Timber has not yet found all the patterns and doesn't always play it to the right foot of the guy and doesn't always make sometimes they think he'll do the overlap or he doesn't hang back when, he's got levels to go from here. And yet his performance was absolutely, his individual ability, his chill, his ballerness with the ball has him at the level that White has been at in that space. And yet you can see that he's still learning the positions and the movements. There was a time in the second half where he picked up the ball once or twice and drove into midfield, dribbled past players. And I'm like, is Nwaneri on already? Is that Nwaneri? I really couldn't quite tell the difference with this guy as he drops the shoulder, slips. So he brings new things. And I found myself, look, you can't help but drift into you said don't do this, Elliot, but I can't help but drift into which one of these guys is my guy at the right
You mean
fullback?
Ben White versus Timber?
Yeah, White versus Timber. It's like having two beautiful women fighting over me, Elliot. Maybe a super
a
supermodel and my wife.
That happened, yeah.
Yeah. My super. Just to get myself out of trouble with this, when my wife hears this, she's going to be fine with this now. Like a supermodel and my wife fighting over me, and what do? I don't know what to do. I'll let them sort it out. They'll sort it out. Yeah, it's a delicious battle to come. It does. Fortunately, we don't have to settle on a starting 11. But for Timber to come in at this level so quickly and kind of you start to dream about what a team with him in it looks like. This was a phenomenal performance in that top right-hand corner of the pitch every time we wanted to turn it on.
Yeah, and that's where two of the goals come from anyway. Clive, why don't you come back and talk about the right-hand side? You can certainly blend in both of the goals because they both come from that side. And interestingly, Rice involved in it as well is just an immense overload of players on that side, which freed us up to be available at the back post.
Yeah, a little bit of relationism there with them coming over and getting close together and just popping the ball around, and it throws them. If you watch the game, you see the pace of pass in the first 3-4 minutes, mate. Honestly, we are wrapping that ball around to each other. And from being on a pitch when someone else is technically better than you, I know exactly what that does to you when you see the ball fizzing to people and their touch is perfect. You know what it does to you? You stand still. You think, I don't want to go near that lot. And basically, they just stood still and they looked passive, but we made them passive by controlling the flow and the momentum of the game. When they got the ball, we just said, okay, 7 passes. There you go. Pop, pop, pop. Into Odegaard, slows it down. Another 5. Let's see if we can shut them up. And next minute, the crowd goes silent, then we go. Right? So it's wonderful, mate. It's wonderful. The availability on passing lines between, I did read that Partey and Odegaard passed to each other 30 plus times. I think it's 31 times, I think it was. And you can watch them today. They were just basically out. You need to give everyone else another ball because they were just knocking the ball to each other, changing angles. The big difference between Timber and White is a defender, runner, passer. Timber is a defender, runner, passer, dribbler. And that's the key. He can dribble you, which commits people, which creates space for the next person because of his carrying ability. Rice does it with running power. So he knocks it and goes. When he goes like a train. So he does it that way. And he creates his overload himself with his power. So it's a difference. That manipulation of Timber when he gets the ball and pulls. I know exactly the point he meant when he thought it was Nwaneri because I thought exactly the same. I thought it has to be him. It can't be anybody else. And he just ran through. And I said to you on the previous pod, he changes player depending what he wants to do. If he needs to be a centre back, he can do it. If he needs to be a right back, he can do it. If he needs to be an attacking mid, he can do it. If he needs to be a right winger, he can do it. You know, and he's a special player. Honestly, he really is. And just, you think back to last season and the Fulham home and away and the Villa home. maybe it all went wrong on the very first game when we saw that kid walk off the pitch at just after half time. And you think about the vulnerability we had at left back. Please don't tell me he wouldn't be able to sort some of that out much sooner. Please don't tell me he can't play left back, because he can. He can play all positions in that back line equally as well. And so maybe that was today. It was today, and it's hindsight's a wonderful thing, but he was wonderful this game. But yeah, the relationism on our right hand side, and I will use that word, relationism. I'm picking it on purpose because that's exactly what it was. It was pass and move, get over, be brave, compact. If we lose the ball, we win it back straight away. They couldn't get it out. They couldn't even see. They couldn't get their heads up. We retained the ball for long spells due to how compact we were. And that's the difference between this team, the compactness, side to side, left to right and back to front. We're playing in a really small space. And in that space, we are the kings. And if they go long, we win races. So it was really good, mate. Really good.
Some days you score 5 goals because you've shot 5 times from outside the box and they all flew in. Some days football just goes for you. This is a game we scored 5 goals and every one of them is a tap in. I mean, one's a penalty. Gabriel's header is, back post 4 yards out, easy. Kai's FB ref gave Kai Havertz goal a 1 expected goal. 1.0, meaning it is a 100% chance of scoring a goal.
You can't miss from there.
No, I mean, Martinelli's looks terrible by that. That was a 0.82 expected goals that they gave that one. And Trossard's terrible, 0.68 expected goal. I mean, these are as big chances as you can. You've destroyed a team when you're scoring tap-in after tap-in after tap-in at the back stick. And I'm just going to say this. I'm very curious to see if this presages anything with Manchester United coming to the Emirates in a little less than a week now, because this back five had no idea what to do with the overloads on the right and could not solve the problem of helping to the right and then leaving what was going on in the back stick. It was just, they had no match for it. So an interesting one to watch. I think Mikel Arteta, he's so clever. And I've not seen back three teams in general when we really want to push them back and have them pinned into defensive third. I've not seen them be able to organize in this way. So yeah, really, really good, obviously. Just a minute on Odegaard. I mean, because I feel like every pod's going to just turn into an Odegaard love-in. But Paul, there's a couple of things. Like, I want urgency in our attack, but the thing that Odegaard has, that pausa, is really special because he will get the ball in a position where I'm like, he's under pressure. He's going to lose it here. And he just manipulates the ball so that defenders can't get it off him. It gives him a second. And suddenly things become available to him because of the extra time he creates. I mean, Saka was playing great without Odegaard, but what he does for Saka is immense because he will either provide that little 3 or 4 yard, right, lateral pass, right, just that straight ball into the half space, so Saka can then run off defenders, or he will go get away from Saka to draw someone out. He's so intelligent with the way he positions himself to give Saka an opening, and their partnership. I think we tend to do this in football. We say this player is the best or that player is the best and don't always appreciate that sometimes two players together make each other better. I'll use the France team as an example. Everyone knows I was not the biggest Olivier Giroud fan in the world. Fair enough. But what he and Griezmann had really worked, right? Griezmann is a weird player. He's an off-the-shoulder striker. He has to play off a bigger striker. And so Giroud pulling defenders away, heading balls down, it just worked, Giroud and Griezmann. Odegaard and Saka individually are brilliant, but together the partnership is excellent. So do you want to maybe speak on that, the Odegaard performance and what his return is doing for Saka in terms of opening up opportunities for him? And you'll also, go for it. Yep.
Yeah. You just can't contain in your mind how good Odegaard is when he's gone. He comes back. Look, you'd have a hard job persuading me that anybody rates Odegaard higher than me. And yet when he's back, I'm like, oh my God, he was so much better than I remember. Top level Odegaard is off the charts. He's easily one of the best players in the world. And the other weird thing about him is he's almost always top level. He's if you have a dog, what's amazing is how they always come with the same mood, right? My dog is always in the same mood all the time. Odegaard is always top level Odegaard. His professionalism, how he brings it, the thing that blows my mind with Odegaard is that he has 1,000 different ways to get that ball. It's like he's spent his whole life learning how to get the ball from him to Saka or whoever is the other side of the defender. A flick one way, a twist, a turn. 1,000. He works out that he wants to get the ball to Saka, and he's got 1,000 different ways to manipulate it. Flicks, trips, back heel, this, that, the other. He will move it to one foot, the other foot, and get it to the guy who's the other side of the defender. And his mastery, they pull more and more players into the space, so it gets more and more congested. And he's just a master of those tight spaces. There was a moment where I think it's Saliba, one of the defenders, just fires the ball into Odegaard in the middle of midfield when he's got 4 players around him, because they now know you just hit the guy. You can hit it. It's the Bergkamp thing. Just fire it to me. Get it to me as fast as you want. Put as much mustard on it as you want. No matter how many players around me, I've already worked out my option out of there. I've worked the path out, the next move, out to the touchline to pick it up again off the defender. His patterns, his paths, and because everybody else knows he's totally secure with the ball, they can all run with confidence to their next spot to pick it up. They don't need to cover for Odegaard. If he has his options, they make the next run. And what you see with him is just the guy who's the hub of the patterns. It's the platform for our attack. It's control, it's possession, it's defense through attack. And we're so secure. We talked about this. They couldn't get out. And the reason they can't get out is because Odegaard, and because everybody around him knows we're secure when he has the ball, and they can all move and be aggressive and move into the press and take their shape, because they know that ball's not going to get spilled and it's not going to come back at them. And so he is attack and defense in one. The guy's just phenomenal, and you can't remember how good he is when he's not there.
There was actually a moment where our left-hand side came alive a little bit, and all of a sudden there's a few combinations on the left. I'm like, all right, here we go. And then I realized it's because Odegaard had shifted over there, and suddenly the left-hand side looked good. For the people who are wondering, why isn't the left-hand side coming to life? I think it is worth remembering there's a decision we're making to prioritize building from the right and overloading from the right. The left-hand side is doing its job out of possession. So something to think about. You want to add on to what Paul said, though, Clive?
Yeah, we scored 2 goals at the left-hand side back post, right? More or less, didn't we? From right-hand side crosses. So,
3 if you want to count Trossard's goals.
Exactly. So your finishers and execution guys are on the left, and your build-up guys are on the right. And so your second ball guys are sometimes on the left with Calafiori and Declan Rice. I think the balance is great. And so you always walk away with something with Odegaard. And, you can choose what that is because he does everything. You can choose what that is. But, when my memory standing in the ground was watching the game with whistling of their fans going on, and we're combining and moving the ball. And I'm trying to see the next pass, where it's going to come from. I can see him squeezing over on somebody. Is there that next pass? And there isn't that next pass. Then suddenly Odegaard pops into the screen and there is a next pass. And then there's the next one after that. And I think his ability to drop from high to low when we need it, go high to right when we need him, to the left when we need him, to almost just, I used the word before, to bend the will of the game to his will, to bend it to him. And to have that ability means you're special, right? Because these other players are quite good as well. You know what I mean? They're quite good.
Yeah.
But they are quite prepared to defer and allow him to build play. And that just tells you that he is the boss, mate. He is the boss in everything we do.
He's remonstrating. He's telling them when to push up. One thing, obviously, when you're at the ground, you see some things that aren't on camera, so I don't know if it's caught by the camera, but the amount of time he's orchestrating the press. I don't think we can emphasize this enough. When Odegaard was out, our press was worse. It's not because Trossard and Kai aren't great. He is the orchestrator. He is the trigger. When he goes, everybody goes.
Is it fair to say our press is different? Yeah, it's different. It probably is worse as well, because we can see a more compact team. But I'm always reticent to say that it's worse. It's different with him. I think
It's different.
he is more, how can I say it? He has more authority to say, we're doing this now. Do you know what I mean? We're doing this, we're going. I'm not sure the others have that same authority within the group to really lead and drive that.
That's a great point. Well, to your point, Zinchenko used to remonstrate to his teammates and try to orchestrate, but I think there's a sense of like, what are you doing, mate? Like, shut up. But when Odegaard does it, he's the captain, he's the man. And by the way, I don't think he's match fit yet. He visibly faded in the second half. He's going to get match fit, which is a scary proposition. Mikel said when he was out, Odegaard has had this chance to really think about some things in life and what's important and stuff. I really do think he thought about his game. It looks like he's just come back even better. Paul, quickly on that, because I have another thing I want to get onto.
I think our press is substantially better with him in it, and I'm with Clive in general in that I think the other guys did the things and did them with zest and energy, and they were very good. And yet, there's something different with Odegaard in terms of the pressing.
Yep.
I think some of the tactical guys on Twitter talked about this, and you see it. He just arcs his run so effectively, so intensely from the first. His first step is aggressive, like just full on charge with it. When he goes, and the opposition knows it. They know it's coming at them. He pushes them over to that sideline. He arcs that run better than anybody to cut out that pass back to the keeper or to the centre back. So one guy can actually make a big difference, not just that he pressed or when he pressed, though it's the intelligence of it too. You do see with him how he arcs his run, and it's subtle. It's just a few yards, but you see the difference to what it was before and what it is now. Yeah, I think we are substantially more aggressive, more effective in that press somehow. I'm still learning how he does it, but I do actually think there's a qualitative difference in terms of how we press and how everybody else then trusts the press, because then Partey has to push up Saliba, and that trust, that knowledge that it's going to work is something you have with Odegaard, and with everybody else it's just best efforts. It's still good.
Yeah.
But this is elite when he presses, and I'm still trying to work out what it is exactly we're doing. But man, I think you can see with your eye, it's more effective, more intense, more consistent.
I think if the way I use the word different is because I think it's a collective thing. So if a guy off the front runs and presses the ball and curves you into a corner, we do that. We do that. Other people can do that. But what I noticed in his first game back, Paul, maybe it was Chelsea game, when he pressed, he turned round behind him and he was arcing his arms to say, "Get up, get up, get up." And that line height difference was key for me. Because when we're playing in a compact unit, I think we're a different team. So whether Odegaard's had any high turnovers or not, he instigated them. And I did read somewhere that I hate creating numbers, so I'm not sure they're going to be right, but I'm going to do it anyway. I think we're something like 30 plus high turnovers or something like that, where we got the ball high up in the pitch. Or I'm not sure how that's defined. But yeah, and that's cool. It was caused a lot by him. It really was caused a lot by him and his actions. So I want to say, I said different because it's not just one man doing it. It's what the others do behind him, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, certainly. I do want to shift gears to the defensive side of this a little bit. It's still better, yes.
Sorry,
no one's debating that. I want to shift to the defensive side of this a little bit and talk about Gabriel and Saliba and the Gyokeres side of it. And I think Mikel had a really interesting game plan because we definitely decided they can build up on the wings. They can have the width. We're not going to let Gyokeres run in behind our defenders, right? And so we kept Saliba and Gabriel close together following his runs, and he really didn't get a lot of joy. One thing that can happen in away matches, when the crowd gets up, you can think you're under the cosh. But you look at this in 13 of their shots. 13. Because we conceded 19 shots. So, well, there was that period in the second half we're under the cosh. Their shots were from 20 yards out or further. Now, look, those count. And Raya had to make some important saves. But the point is, you're gonna give up the 20-yard shots. I mean, not unmarked. You don't want to do what you did against Pedro Neto, right, against Chelsea, where they're running into space at the top of the box, clean through. But even that one, how unfortunate is that? It gets right between two diving players' legs and finds a corner. Ultimately, Raya kept those shots out. But if you're going to concede shots, 20 yards out is the way to do it. So, yeah, there was that. And by the way, as a last point on praising Odegaard, when we did feel under the cosh, when it was 3-1, when their crowd was up a bit and it was starting to feel a little pressurized, we went through a period where we had no shots, right? So it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 shots for Sporting to 0 for Arsenal to start that second half, with one exception. We had one shot in there. You know what the shot was? It was Bukayo Saka's penalty. And it was won by Martin Odegaard, right? So in that period where maybe we're under the cosh and maybe this game could turn a little, Odegaard takes that moment, takes control, gets into the box, and wins a penalty. And I think this helps Bukayo too, because it means that Bukayo Saka doesn't have to carry the entire responsibility, which it really felt to me like he was with Odegaard out. There seemed to be a heaviness to Saka's game in the responsibility of having to do it all. And by the way, Saka's penalty was incredibly well placed. And I think Saka has gone up a level even in that side of his game to not just picking a side and hitting it hard, but finding the side netting. And all you need to do is look at the penalty that Mbappe took or the penalty that Mohamed Salah took. Two pretty good players. And they were terrible penalties. And Saka steps up in that moment, makes it 4-1, and we go on and have a historic night. And it's just brilliant. I do want to switch to the defensive side of the game, but we got to do some housekeeping here. So let's tell you about NordVPN. I used it this whole week, and I recommend you use it as well. I had a friend of mine text me the other day and be like, I need your NordVPN promo code right now. I need NordVPN. I want to watch something. So don't wait till the thing you're trying to watch is kicking off. This lets you watch from all over the world. You simply click a button on whatever device you're on, and boom, you're browsing in the region you need to browse in. You can even sign up for a overseas price for a streaming service and basically pay for the whole Nord plan just with saving money that way. It works on all devices. It does have threat protection. If you're a football supporter, you're going to watch some things on some streams that maybe are putting things on your computer or your device you don't want to. So Nord will protect you from that too. You got a great value from Nord with us if you want to do it. Grab your exclusive NordVPN deal by going to nordvpn.com/ArsenalVision to get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan. 4 additional months on top. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. NordVPN.com/ArsenalVision. Do it now. And also, I'm not going to tell you about shaving your privates. I'm going to tell you about shaving your face. And your face is not your privates. You can't even get your face near your privates. Well, some people can get their face near their privates. And if that's a thing that you want to find out more about, you certainly can. Other people might, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to tell you about the Chairman Pro. The Chairman Pro is a electric foil shaver from the folks at Manscaped. So it is wet dry, right? Works in the shower if you want to shave there. I just like shaving with water. I feel like just better, cleans up, easier. It can go fully smooth. It's got 4 blade foil with the skin safe technology. It has the edging attachment so you can get to the difficult to reach areas on the neck and under the nose, things like that. It is waterproof. It has 75 minutes of runtime. So let's say it takes you 5 minutes to shave. You could go away for a long time with it, never even have to bring any kind of charger for it. You just wash it clean. Very easy to use. Fantastic device. If you like an electric shaver or haven't liked them in the past and want to try one, strongly recommend this. So you can go to manscaped.com, use promo code ArsenalVision for 20% off and free shipping. That's manscaped.com, promo code ArsenalVision, 20% off free shipping. And this podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp isn't online therapy. It's therapy that happens to be online, and the holidays, they're just a time when we need that extra help. I mean, they are a joyful time, but they can also be a melancholy time and a difficult time. And so if you are going through that and you need help, this is a way to get it. Now, look, like I said, I've done therapy. I did it in an office with a therapist, and I can't recommend it strongly enough. But if you can't drive, if you don't have time to drive, if you don't have a therapist near you, if it's not affordable for you to do that, if you don't feel comfortable sitting in that environment, you want some easier way in, you can do it camera off. BetterHelp is a great way to find your way to get into therapy and access therapy as a starting point for improving yourself, and BetterHelp is an option to do that. So visit betterhelp.com/vision today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/vision today. Do it now. And finally, Shopify is your e-commerce platform. I built e-commerce sites, and it's no fun. But using Shopify made it click and drag simple. You pick the pictures, you pick the videos, you say, I want to be on TikTok, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, on all the different platforms you may want to sell, and it lets you sell there. It takes care of cart optimization, things like that. So you don't have to worry about do I tax or shipping, or how do I get people who put it in the cart to check? It just does all of that. And the thing is, look, at the end of the day, someone wants to buy your art or your merchandise or your whatever creative project you're doing. They want to support your small business. But if they come to your website and it's wonky and it doesn't work right, or it doesn't make it easy for them to do it, they're not going to support you. So this is a way to build something professional looking so people can support your business. And in fact, an immense amount of global commerce. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US, all of it on Shopify. And entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. So sign up for a $1 per month. That's pretty cheap. Trial at shopify.com/ArsenalVision, all lowercase, weirdly. Shopify.com/ArsenalVision, all lowercase now, to grow your business no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/ArsenalVision. Do now, Clive. Is that enough of that?
Indeed. And can I just say, Arsenal
Mm-hmm.
had 31, sorry, Sporting had 31 losses and 5 led to a shot. So that tells you where we had 19 losses and only 1 leading to a shot. That tells
He's
you.
always thinking about football, even when I'm giving you access to good commerce. Okay, I have to change the tone of the pod just for a second. And this is a really painful message that I received from Christian. We talk about community a lot, and community is about people that we know and we care about, but also people we maybe have never met, but we still care about because we're all in this together. And so Josh Oates just celebrated his 30th birthday a couple weeks ago. Arsenal fan, season ticket holder, sat in block 4, loved the Arsenal, had come to some of our live events, a part of our community, and a person loved and cared about by his friends and family, and suffered a heart attack and passed unexpectedly. Just devastating to read this message. I know that Christian is struggling, and we're here for you and we love you. And I know other people are probably struggling going through this. And I just want to send immense love and gratitude to Josh for, everything that he was to Arsenal and to his friends and family, and to the people that are struggling because of it. Just immense love and hope for a better tomorrow. And please rest in peace, Josh. You will be missed. So a terrible message to have to share, but it's just terrible thing to hear. And I know, look, there's a lot of people suffering, a lot of terrible things that happen in the world, but when something like that happens to a young person in your community, you want to call it out, and you want to send love and prayers and hope to those people. So I hope, that message reaches people. And if you do know any of them, please send them the support and the love that they need. So I am sorry to have to pass that message along. The good news is that for those of us who stay connected to Arsenal, things are going well right now. And, Clive, the defensive side of the game is the side that becomes the platform by which the attacking players can go get all the accolades and the credit. Everybody wanted to see what Victor Gyokeres had. I'm going to say some contradictory things. I thought he got absolutely owned by Saliba and Gabriel, and I was still impressed with him. His strong running, his pace, his power. The thing that impressed me about Gyokeres, that I think is an incredibly important skill. We sometimes have the problem of only taking shots or getting goals when it's perfect, right? When you just the angle, just right. He gets good, strong shots off from off angles effectively, like the one that hit the post. But Saliba and Gabriel were live to the task. They were so good, comfortable and controlled under pressure when they won the ball back. What did you think of that battle and how Saliba and Gabriel handled Gyokeres?
Yeah, obviously we can go and look at him live, and I do think his game is it has a lot of clarity about it. He runs down the sides, both sides. He went on to both centre-backs because that's what his team needed him to do. And so he didn't really stick on one. And so he sometimes tries to find the weak one. There is no weak one there. So he thought, I better go to the side. I thought Saliba and Gabriel wrapped their legs around him to take the ball away. I don't think he's used to that level of close contact. When he ran them, they could run with him. They could. When they couldn't, what they did, they blocked off the far post and let him shoot on the near post, knowing the goalkeeper would stand there. He can certainly kick the case off the ball, though, can't he? He can feel the power when he hits it. So in a strange way, he was dominated. Yet, if you want to look, you could say, actually, he would do all right with our team because he seemed like the only attacking threat. And we've got a few attacking threats in our team. So imagine him consistently one-on-ones against centre-backs who are not as good as ours. There's only another pair that's good as ours, and they play Liverpool at the moment. Right? They're the only other pair that can handle him. Man City, they weren't strong on the day. But we can handle that type of player who tells you who he is, tells you where he's running. There's no cuteness there. I'm going here, and I'm going to try to run you. I do think some of the early shots could be translated into, I don't fancy running you, I'm just hitting it hard. Because he worked out he couldn't run them. And he took his shots. But for me, I quite like the directness and clarity in his game, and he's got power in both feet. He had one run second half against Kiwior, and Kiwior ran with him, blocked off the far post, took a near post shot, but he really blew past Raya because of the power behind it, right? So, I sent out a note after the game saying, "What do people think of him?" I got loads of replies, because I was genuinely interested in what the TV told you. I've only watched the first half since I came back, so I'm interested in what Paul felt watching it live. How did he feel? Did he feel the fear, or did he feel we had control of it?
Yeah, what do you think, Paul?
I was very, very impressed. I'm with you, Elliot. I was really impressed with him, and yet it just spoke to me how strong our centre-back pairing were. I think Gabriel, Saliba were phenomenal. He got us once, right? That time he gets onto Kiwior, he's spun Saliba in that situation late in the game. I'm pretty sure Raya saves that shot. I think it comes off his glove. Like, I watched it like a whole bunch of times, and you can't see it from most angles, but there's an angle where you see it and it comes off the side of his hand. Raya does enough to move it onto the post. And talk about another part of that defensive unit. Raya's been quietly off the chart. We've been so good the last couple of games. You don't fully appreciate the level he's playing at because he's not getting worked that much. I thought Gabriel Saliba were phenomenal defensively. So I felt really good against Gyokeres. And yet I saw enough here that I'm like, he was so good against those guys in terms of the things he did and the trouble he gave them that they controlled. I'm like, yeah, to Clive's point, I could see him on our team absolutely killing it. The power in his shots is just, he takes that free kick that goes off to the moon because he miscalibrates by a millimeter or two. But you get that thing on target, you're going to rip the net open, or you're going to kill two defenders in the wall. The power of his shots is just phenomenal. So, yeah, I was really impressed with him. I could see why you would go for this guy. And the power of his running, I'm like, yep, sign me up. If you're going to do this center forward thing, because in general, do we need a center forward? No. Do we need a world-class center forward? Who doesn't? Yes, we do. I think this guy is the level. Again, I don't know that much about him, but based on this game, I could see what all the fuss was about. And yet, I felt so secure with our centre backs.
From a transfer standpoint, he's going to be 27, and I think he's going to be good for a few years. It's really a case of what's the price, what's the wages, what can you get him for, right? We're going to have to speculate in the attack eventually. Everyone wants Alexander Isak. Okay, well, 120 million and $250,000 a week, and you could maybe get him. And he even has injury issues. So I don't think there's a sure thing anywhere. What I'll say about him is his ability, again, to take strong, accurate shots off platform. You think about doing that for a team that crowds the box, that's around and second balls, deflections, rebounds, what you're going to get from him. I think there's something to that. Even in a game where I think he was well handled by the center backs, 5 shots, 3 key passes, 8 attempted dribbles, right? The whole attack flows through him, and he really is, I think, able to shoulder a lot of that burden. But Gabriel and Saliba handled it, and well, Clive, weigh in on that because I don't want to ask you about the Gabriel celebration. So weigh in on the last
the celebration thing. I think it's interesting, right? So, also we're speaking about our team, and we can all, because we've been a bit unbalanced and unfit recently, we can now see the balance and the fitness, and it looks really, really good, And but he's supported by a young kid. I think it's Marcus Edwards, who used to be at Spurs, a pocket player, a dinky little number 10 plays in behind him. And Trincao, who was at Wolves a year or so ago, gone back to Portugal, a bright young player, lefty, a bit of trickery. These are not sure things. These are not sure bets. This isn't Odegaard, Saka with Declan Rice bombing and Kai Havertz around. This isn't that. And so he has to almost generate his own stuff, right? He almost got to be like Kyrie Irving, almost do everything himself, right? And so. So I think, he did okay. I walked away, Elliot, thinking 27 next summer, 60 million I'm not sure, because you Americans have taught me the ACE curve and the value propositions, the stats and the data. I can no longer see a player for just what he is. I have to look at it down the road. I'm not sure that's quite the right value. If the value was right, I would look at it. I really would. I like his ability to get up the pitch, transition. I do. But I also think there are other options. If you're going to spend, you make sure you spend for the next 3 years, like properly. This is it. And I think we're at that stage. So let's see.
Yeah, three key qualities, right? He's got pace, he's got power, and he kicks the ball, with the leg that's like a traction engine. And the kicking the ball hard and accurate thing, that's still going to happen in the Premier League. So the question is, would his pace look fast in the Premier League, and would his power look strong enough in the Premier League versus the Portuguese league? Well, I thought it looked pretty good up against us, even though we handled it. I mean, Erling Haaland struggles against our center backs, and he scored 3 against City, ran away from their defenders. So I don't know, just something to think about. I will say with the celebration, my take on it, again, I think what happened is Xhaka had his goal celebration. When Sporting knocked us out a few years ago, they imitated Xhaka's goal celebration. So I don't think this was a Gyokeres specific thing. I think it was Gabriel getting back for them mocking Xhaka's celebration. So, long memory. Have a long memory. That's the rule there, kids. That's the lesson. I think we should probably just have a little chat about midfield, because it's an interesting one. And I think the thing that's unfortunate in football is when you find a group of very good players, instead of celebrating that your group has grown and you have good players in your group, the person who's not getting all the accolades in the group becomes the person who's surplus to requirements and stinks and needs to go and is bad at football. And it is a very binary thing that happens. What's good for us right now is we have a group where a lot of people are contributing and able to keep the level. But Paul, I'll ask you your thoughts on Rice. And I think Tim has made some interesting points here. And the thing he was talking in the Discord and just sort of saying all the disagreement and all the discussion that we were getting in the Discord channel about Rice that was coming up just shows how fertile a topic this is for conversation and how people are thinking about it. But Merino comes on and looks good. And I think Merino has looked good lately at the left 8 position when he's played there. And Rice was heavily involved in, was it the first goal or the second goal? The sort of interchanging passes.
He had an involvement in the first goal and the second goal, but he
assisted the third. So,
yes,
a
supplementary
from the corner
in the first 3 goals. So yeah, but yeah, when you're ready to me, let me know.
Yeah. Well, so you're gonna get a big chance here. So he did drift over to the right to help overloads there. But what do you think? I mean, there's a lot of feeling, and I might be in this camp that the future for Rice to really become the superstar player we think he could be is that he drops in and becomes the 6 in Merino and Odegaard play. Having said that, he looked like 100 million pounds of value at the left 8 all last season. I don't think he has to own one position, but people feel impatient for that. What's your take on maybe his performance in this game and the wider implications of how our midfield is shaping up?
Yeah, I feel like midfield is like I've got 3 beautiful women fighting over me. None of
this
whom
is only
are my
getting
wife.
worse for you specifically. For us, it's fine. For you, this is only getting worse.
I do look. I have quite a bit of sympathy for the Rice debate because it's going on in my head. If you would not find it difficult to persuade me if you knew what was going on with Arsenal, that he's got a little bit of fitness stuff that's still been worked through, that he has his broken toe and it's impacting him a bit. I have not seen the best Declan Rice. And so it's kind of not a fair fight, right? When they weigh in for the fight, it would be nice if they were ready for the fight, if they were fighting fit before we compare who's versus who. But even with that, even the best Declan Rice, Merino, I think we've seen, has a bag of tricks in the attacking part of the pitch that are not things I associate with Declan Rice yet. The Trossard's goal comes off a powerful shot, a quickly taken shot that Merino. I think there's a lot of intelligence in taking the pot shot from there. That's the classic. I'm going to hammer this at the keeper, give him something to think about, and worst case, this thing bounced back to our attacking line, who happens to be Trossard. he's got spins, moves, he's aggressive. He's like Gabriel in terms of attacking set pieces and corners. He brings that intensity. And so he has a very interesting bag of tricks around the left 8 position. I mean, that's his specialty. And he may not be world class, but he's a specialist at it and at a very high level. I think he's going to be very, very hard to shift from that left to 8 spot once he himself fully hits the groove and finds his patterns and relationships. On the other hand, Thomas Partey is playing off the charts again, right? He's gradually moved himself up to a level of fitness and form and performance where I'm like, it would be weird to drop Thomas Partey.
Probably his best game of the season, by the way. I mean, this was real good.
Yeah, and he's just back-to-back games now, and his fitness levels, he seems to be getting stronger and stronger, so that defensively he's running back with players. He's winning tackles, he's winning duels, his pressing, his intelligence. So this might be the area that, for at least for a while, I got to say to myself, any combination of these players plus Odegaard is a winner. And I thought Jorginho was actually really good in his recent performance, right? I thought he got a bit of critique for it because I think people looked for the things he doesn't do. But I think the things he does, he hasn't, I've said this a million times, he has not got slower than when he was 26 or 27. He was always slow, and yet he was a bit of a worldie. I think he's still got that. He's not our first or maybe our second choice here, but there are a lot of really good combinations that we can use over the rest of the season in multiple competitions. So I'm going to lean into Clive's thing of don't be obsessing too much about who your starting 11 is or who your best 11 is. But at the same time, I do have a big... when again will Declan Rice look £100 million player that in fact we stole at that price because he was that good? There was that player last season, and I think it's when we play more double pivoty, and we haven't been doing a lot of that. But the best Declan Rice is a double pivoty kind of midfield without him asking to be full on left 8, because the full on left 8 has to do more attacking than I think you see Rice doing in a world-class way. Rice is a good attacker. He's learning that part of it. He'll get better, but I think he's a ways off being a world-class left 8, where he's a world-class double pivot.
Clive, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think I think Rice is a left-sided 6 primarily right now, who can play single pivot, who can play, on the right-hand side as well as a right 6, if you see what I mean. I'm not worried about him. It's about style, really. So I thought Thomas Partey was spectacular in this game.
Mikel said he thought it was his best performance of the season, by the way,
honestly,
or up there. Yeah.
Sometimes they used to say, watch a game through Busquets. Just watch a game through Thomas Partey, and we're going to do that tomorrow, Elliot. I'm going to show you why when people say they want Rice as a 6, I'm going to ask them, what do they really want? Because you're not going to get that, what Thomas Partey did. You're going to get something else, right? So there's a comp out there on Locatelli, plays for Juventus, and against Villa. Similar to Thomas Partey, not as smooth. Some of those passes, he was falling over, a bit rickety, stretching on the stretch. So he's not physically as good as Thomas Partey, but that's the style of 6 that I think this team needs. Zubimendi, watch him play. A bit more punchy, a bit more bouncy, but he can play all the range of passes, and he gets to the line to receive the ball, and he moves line to always create a gap. When the man either side of him, he stands right in between it, and he receives it, and it goes. That's a different thing. Some of the progressive passing, little clip passes, disguised passing, it was ridiculous. They didn't know what to do. Declan Rice now, for me, when I wanted him, I wanted someone to wrestle momentums away from people. So he reads the drop really, really well. So his way of progressing it is to receive it and then drive 10 yards, freeze it with a drive, which he did on one of the goals, right? I think it might have been the second goal. Won it in the middle, a second ball, drove, recycled back to Partey, then clipped it into Saka's run, and then we score, right? So for the balance for me, You've got someone who can physically wrestle momentum from games with his physicality and reading the second ball and how he carries. You've got somebody in Odegaard who can just control the pace of a game, higher up in one line, do what he likes, basically. And Thomas Partey is always available to start the play off, and he's a deep line playmaker. So that, for me, is the ideal balance. You've got three players that can do a lot of jobs. So I haven't read Tim's article fully yet. I just skimmed it, but he did say one thing that I think if we're going to buy a 6. And I agree with him. It will be a 6 because we've got two players that are stick-on 6s. We've got lots of people who can play 8s. So we got those two people who are stick-on 6s. They're going to potentially both be gone. So we're going to buy one, aren't we? We're going to buy one and develop in that role. And then everyone else will get more time there. For me, there will be a day where we're not playing this champagne football. And we'll have fear in our hearts. And we're going somewhere. And I'll be saying, we need to play Rice as a 6 in this game because I don't trust us defensively. I need to make sure he's there to be that guy. And so this is why I don't obsess, because things change. And Elliot, you're right on fitness. We saw the moment when the energy left his body, didn't we? And we could almost call the substitution, and it came. And to see Declan Rice come off, if that happened last year, we'd all be in shock. So that tells you where he is in his energy at the moment. And Merino came in and was really, really good as well. So we're just lucky to have those options at the moment.
It's a group. And by the way, this group went to a place where no one has won for 18 months and won 5-1. So I think the thing that Rice gives us is an ability to play in one lineup and win the ball back and be a dominant physical presence in ball recovery and in the duels at the edge of the final third, or go one line back if we need him to, and be a space monster and recover into space and let us play a Merino and Odegaard a little bit higher up and let Declan go clean everything up so that we don't look exposed and we don't look like we're vulnerable, Clive.
I'll ask you a question, because I think Thomas Partey had over 70 touches in this game and was unbelievable. Declan Rice had 37
36?
touches? Yeah, 36, 37 in 70 minutes or so? And you could ask yourself, is that enough? I'm sure we've had the same conversations about Granit Xhaka. Yeah, he was massively influential, but he went from 100 touches to like 45 playing that position. It's an interesting one, isn't it? About what that position really, I still want that left 8 pod, didn't I? What that position really is and what we expect from it. But I will say we're controlling momentums. That's what Xhaka used to do, and that's what Rice is doing. So I'll take it. But is that enough for 100 million quid, mate? That's what I'm asking. Maybe some people are saying, let's move him back so he has more touches. What does more touches for Declan Rice look like?
It's really tough, though, right? Because when you look at a team, instead of looking at what the individual players cost, look at what the squad cost. Because, for example, what if Declan Rice had cost £35 million? Would we even have this conversation? Because that's what Gabriel cost, right? What if Gabriel cost £100 million? Or Saliba cost £100 million? We wouldn't blink an eye. They're both worth £100 million. Maybe Rice hasn't, last season he did, but maybe Rice isn't right now looking like 100. Who cares? The squad looks like £1 billion squad. You know what I mean? And so the pieces all work. Odegaard was too cheap. Gabriel was too cheap. Saliba was too cheap. Saka was free. Martinelli was too cheap. Timber was too cheap. Right? You can go through the whole squad this way. Maybe Declan Rice, that was a big price for that. But he certainly has been part of one of the best Arsenals I've seen in 20 years. So we don't have to be impatient.
But I get the debate, right? Because there was last year we said, God, he's worth 100 million and some. He's a steal.
Yeah.
So,
but this is the evolution too. I think the other thing is we played without Odegaard. We played with 10 men, and he's played with a broken toe, and kind of like Ben White, where everyone's going, Timber's better than Ben White. Get that guy out of the squad. Like, that's his congratulations for playing on a broken knee for half a season. So there's no, memories are so short. We had the memories of fruit flies in football, and it's a little bit unfair. Rice playing injured.
You and I don't, Elliot.
No. It's Clive,
everybody else. The listeners. Yeah.
They have memories of a fruit fly. To be honest, the one person you can't accuse of having the memory of a fruit fly is Tim, because he could tell you if there was a fruit fly in the ground 22 years ago and, whether it landed on the head of the player who scored the goal. So So we'll see. It'll be interesting to see that evolution. The good news is Merino came on and looked good. And Clive, I mean, brick by brick, that's how he wants to build up Ethan Nwaneri. There's another brick. He comes on in the Champions League and he looks good. He scored a goal at the weekend and he was, I thought, influential in his cameo in this one. The biggest difference between him and Odegaard is just where Odegaard has that pausa and that sophistication to his game. Nwaneri has all the technical quality, but he's much more direct and much more, I think, urgent in the way he plays, wanting to go attack the opposition goal. So what do you think of his appearance?
He's at the moment he's playing the role of attacking midfield impact substitute.
Yeah.
So when you're there and the manager walks you to the touchline, he doesn't say go out there and just have a stroll about. He says go out there, make an impact, and take the momentum of this game away from them in the last quarter. That's exactly what he does. Which means Martin Odegaard can start on Sunday. He's not running his legs off. That's a perfect role for him at the moment. He's playing against players that maybe a bit. I think he might have come on at 4-1, Elliot. He might have come on, I'm guessing. Mm-hmm. And that means they're a little bit down. And we just continue momentum, protect the player. And he looked after it really nicely. And he's a bit more goal-orientated, rather than playmaker. He wants to get goals, bring it to the danger area and kill a pass, kill a shot or pre-assist. He's that more orientated where Odegaard wants to run every inch of the game, every inch of the pitch. And by the way, Odegaard wasn't doing, all of what Nwaneri's doing at 17, although he might have been, and some of the teams he was at. But do you see what I mean? He wasn't doing that when he joined for Arsenal. He wasn't doing everything he's doing now. He'd had to grow into that role, and so Nwaneri's got plenty of time. And we spoke about it when we was away. I don't want Nwaneri to be I personally don't want Nwaneri to be a problem and a discussion point where it becomes a referendum on someone's quality to spot talent and know when to use him. I find that really frustrating because Nwaneri has been brought into first team training for a couple of years by this manager, nurtured with other coaches at the Hale End to make sure he has different positions in his portfolio. I've seen youth games where he's played centre forward. What's he doing there? That's no good. We want to win this game. But it's all about development, right? What's he doing on the left wing? What's he doing there? That's stupid. What a waste of a player. Now when he gets the ball in those areas, he looks ready to play. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to build a player, and now we can use him. So I don't think the manager should be criticised for not using him when he's the one that's a big influence on building him. Mikel Arteta wasn't an influence on building Bukayo Saka. He was given him. But he was an influence on building Ethan Nwaneri. So I trust him to bring him into the group.
Nwaneri and Merino have a similar thing that goes on, which is every time they come on, they are involved in or nearly involved in a goal. I just think that they have such good offensive instincts. One thing they both also have is they're accurate shooters. Nwaneri shoots very accurately, and as a result, I think he either scores or he often leads to an opportunity for another. His shot that he took was well struck and accurate, and it was close to being a rebound goal opportunity, right? Merino, he is the guy who takes the shot that leads to the rebound for Trossard, right? Who scores. Merino scored against Liverpool. Merino had an offside goal or an offside goal involvement against Forest, right? Just offside, barely. And these players that come on that are just very involved in in goal creating type situations are so important. I think Merino is one of those players. First of all, he looks terrifying from every set piece. I mean, he just almost scores off every set piece. Incredible. So I think those players both have big roles to play, and I'd be curious to see how they work. Look, ultimately, 5 goals away in Europe at the home of a team that hasn't lost at home in 18 months, a team that beat City 4-1. It really is an incredible moment in the season, and I say this so often, and I hope it doesn't come across as sanctimonious, but just enjoy it. When was the last time we did this? Just enjoy it. It doesn't happen much, and when it does, it's really special. Clive, one thing just to ask you as you look at the Champions League, I mean, what happened to City and the way Pep looks, something looks really broken there. Do you think maybe, finally, fully, it is broken there?
Again, it doesn't take much to work out what's actually happening there. And just look at the ages of the team. You know, they've had a fantastic period where they've literally won everything in football. I think they won 5 or 6 trophies in 1 year. And they are an average age around 28, 29. You know, just go through the ages. Aki, up to 30. Akanji around 30. Diaz getting on. Stones getting on. Walker getting on. Gundogan getting on. You know, and the younger players they bought.
What does that mean for you and me, by the way?
Yeah, well, you saw me walking around Lisbon, so you know exactly what it means, right? So basically, and I'm afraid they're aging out a little bit, and it's just showing eventually, you know. And their prime time Ballon d'Or winners not on the pitch. Their centre forwards looking a little bit grumpy, and they sold their second centre forward and they banked the money. There's a lot of indecision around there at the moment, and I don't see a tactical solution. When they were getting a little bit of trouble, they could play 4 centre backs and play hard up front and go and win the treble by being physical and not conceding. I don't see that solution in the group. They get their better players healthy, they're going to be better for it. Foden's gone quiet, and so let's see what they do. They're not done, but I'll be honest with you. I felt we were the best team last year, and I'm just gutted that we didn't quite get there. But this decline has been on the charts for a while. Their concession of breakaway goals has been going up for a long time. They've been conceding more XG over a longer period of time. They just know how to win the critical moments, and they have done for a number of years. And now they're in a funk. But so were we a little while ago, and we came back with some healthy bodies. So I don't count them out yet. I'm more interested in Liverpool, for most of you, because they're the team that are 9 points ahead. They're the team only lost 1 game this season and drawn 1, I believe. And they're winning in a nice, calm, serene way. And they get a lovely ride from the press. And yeah, they're just going on. And we should be looking at them and closing that gap. But if we don't go past them, we're not winning anything.
Yeah, I mean, so you point to luck. Bad luck for Arsenal, good luck for Liverpool. And people get really mad about that. And I think it's because people don't want credit taken away from their team or credit given to another team or whatever the case may be. It would be wrong, flat out wrong, if you think luck doesn't weigh into seasons. Of course it does. Of course it does. We saw how close the margins were last season. Of course luck weighs into it. We get the Saka penalty in the first leg against Bayern. What's our Champions League season look like last season? Youngman's Son finishes a chance. He's finished 199 times out of 100 in his career. What's our Premier League season look like last season? Luck factors in. Losing Odegaard to a freak injury on international duty. 2 absolute nonsense red cards or injury during the Liverpool game where we lose Gabriel and we have to take Timber off, having already lost Saliba ban for those games. These things do matter. And I do feel that Liverpool, and I say this almost as credit to them, it all feels like a very charmed season all of a sudden. Right down to Mbappe missing a penalty, right down to Vinny Jr. getting injured at the weekend before they go to Anfield, right down to the goals that Southampton conceded. It feels very charmed right now. And if this continues, they're not going to be caught. Sometimes a season, just every domino falls in your favor. I just have this weird feeling that it won't, and there will be a period where it doesn't. You know, down to the fact that they're facing City at the absolute lowest ebb of City I've ever seen, and Pep Guardiola is literally scratching his head to pieces. But I just have a feeling there's going to be a rough patch. So let's see, because the underlying metrics are interesting. You want to hear an interesting stat? Liverpool are even on points versus similar fixtures last season. Even. Their XG is worse this season than last season. I'm not saying they're not good. They are good. Mohamed Salah is playing football at a level. Even Mohamed Salah doesn't reach all the time. Van Dijk still looks good. Is Konate injured? I don't know if Konate is injured. There was a word on that. If he is, I think that hurts them.
It's not a serious injury.
Important.
It's not a serious injury.
Well, there you go. A little bit of a charm.
Bradley's injured, by the way. Bradley's injured.
Connor Bradley. Well, they'll just have to play that chump Trent Alexander-Arnold. I think we can just about leave it. One thing, we may have an injury to Gabriel. Sterling was poised to come on, and he didn't. Gabriel came off. I watched it again. The hug that Gabriel had with Mikel, they exchanged words. It didn't look like he was too worried, so I'm not going to worry. Of course, I'm going to worry. I'm kidding. I'm going to worry like mad until I see the lineup against West Ham. Final thing then. It is back to Premier League action. Lopetegui will be suspended for the match against us at West Ham. West Ham was a happy hunting ground last season, but it hasn't always been the case. That crowd can get up or it can get down depending on how the game is going. They've not been great this season, Paul. Quickly, we've been sharing games. I say we have been. We did against Forest. We did against Sporting. Do you expect to see a bit more change again to the lineup, or is he going to look at how we played in Sporting and say, I just got to run that out again?
Like, this is the one that'll tell us. You know, when you do those arithmetic geometric sequences, IQ tests or what, they give you a 2 and a 4, and then the next number is it a 6? Is it an 8? You know, this is the one that tells us the pattern. Because if you take the 2 games, then yes, we're going to change things around, and he's really comfortable playing different players. But coming off the Dubai as a state of mind break that we just had, he played the guys he had played with for 2 weeks because, in a sense, he had to. It was the right thing to do, and he trusted them. And he'd had 2 weeks with Gabriel Jesus and the boys, and like he owed it to them. Because if he doesn't play them then when? And it still meant a leap of faith, because that was, as many people said, the Forest game was the most important game of the season so far because it was the restart. But he went for a very different lineup that surprised me. And now we get to find out. And I don't know. I think he's going to go with... He's got to keep it strong. I don't think it's going to be as rotatey. I don't think he's going to flip to the second 11, even though they share a lot of players in it. And so I think we're going to start to see a drift, at least for a while, because everybody's fit and firing, to his conception of what's our best 11, because he needs to hit that rhythm. He needs to build the confidence. So, yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of the same players. Maybe the big one is Martinelli versus Trossard on the left. I think almost everything else picks itself. I don't think he's going to drop Rice. So that's really what it comes down to. But that's not a lot of variation there. It's like I thought Trossard was excellent against Forest. I thought Martinelli was excellent in this. Can't really go wrong. So there's no great concerns.
Clive, final?
Yeah, I think West Ham had a good win the other day. And they weren't fantastic, but they had a good win. And I was talking to their team, and it's got a lot of balance in it, in a 4-2-3-1, playing Paqueta as almost like a left 6, if you see what I mean, which is unusual for him. And they had a guy called Carlos Soler come in. And he come out of Spain. I used to like him actually back in the day, one of my YouTubers. And they played him as a 10, and Somerville left, who's a sharp player. Bone on the right, who's a lefty coming in, and a righty from the left-hand side. Mikel Antonio running the channels. Max Kilman, the left-sided centre-back, playing it there. And you look at it, this got a bit of balance to it, And so they've had that win. The desperation would have left the building, and they seem to play with a little bit of calmness once they got that win. So, hey, look, we just come away from some of the best football I've seen in a long time. Don't underestimate West Ham. Don't rock up there thinking you're going to score 5 and 6. Although I'd love it. We didn't see it coming last year, and it happened. And don't think they haven't remembered what that felt like. Don't underestimate an opponent. I'm hoping we don't. But we've got Manchester United on a Wednesday, and so you could see a little bit of rotation, depending on health, but not a disrespectful rotation. More to think about someone who might have a bit too many miles on the clock. Given Manchester United is coming on the Wednesday night at home, and we need to make sure we deal with them, right? So, interesting one to watch. But West Ham, don't underestimate them. If we win 5-0 and people dig me out, then I'll happily take it. But I'm conscious that they've had their first win and they're going to be bouncing.
They played City and Chelsea at home and Villa at home. They lost them all. They were pretty soundly battered by Chelsea and City. It was a very high-scoring or high underlying metrics affair against Villa. Just something to think about. To your point, they did beat Newcastle at the weekend, and they've been sitting there just getting ready for the visit of Arsenal the whole time we've been off in Europe. So it's a big couple of weeks because we go to West Ham and then we host United midweek. And this is it for Liverpool, right? They come off an emotional win over Real Madrid. They welcome City to the Anfield, and then they go to Newcastle. So it's a big week for how the domestic season looks, and we need to take care of business. I personally think that we can, and I think that we look like we will. But runs need to be confirmed, right? You need to say that this is it. This run, Forest away, Forest at home, Sporting away, West Ham away. That's an important run. Draw a line under it. Then you got United coming to Arsenal midweek under the lights at night. Big game, of course. We'll do a rewatch tomorrow. We got a lot of really fun stuff coming. We'll have an instant reaction back to the live streamed instant reaction as well over the weekend. So little something for everyone. And you can use that promo code 10nil all caps if you want for the first month at half off for new subscribers. And just anything you need from us, please get in touch. We love to hear from you. Loved seeing you. Happy to be home with my family, and I'm looking forward to now celebrating Thanksgiving. But a great way to kick off the celebration is having a chat with two of my dear friends about the football club I love. So, Paul, happy Thanksgiving.
Woohoo! Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Well, not
Clive,
everybody. Those people who are celebrating Thanksgiving.
But also
not happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thursday. Clive, you won't need my invitation, but I hope you enjoy a glass of something red or white today.
I'll be keeping my head down. I've had a bit of a rough week, so it'll be Evian today, but maybe at the weekend. But have a good
maybe
holiday,
get the Lycra on. See, that's a beautiful thing, though. We walked you around a bit in Lisbon, so you got a little activity. All right, my name's Elliot Smith. You can block me everywhere at Yankee Gunner. We absolutely love you. I hope you're doing well, and we will talk to you after Arsenal 10, West Ham 0.